What's going on, YouTube? It is Cosmos here, back with another Joust tier list, this time for Open Beta 7. We haven't done one of these since Open Beta 3, so I figure instead of just doing like an update and like having the old tier list up, we'll just try and run through the whole list here of 54 characters now. One character coming out every 2 weeks and give you guys a bit of an update on the Joust meta here for those of you that are interested. Give you a nice general idea of the strength of characters, how they measure up to each other and whatnot. And if you really want to win, what you should pick, and if you really want to not lose, what you should pick and what you should avoid. So we'll get right into it here. We've got Mr. Achilles. We'll just go in alphabetical order. Achilles has risen quite substantially from where I've felt he was before. I think I put him in the B tier last time, and I thought even that was a mistake. He probably should have gone in the A tier. But now Achilles is definitely looking like a top meta pick in Joust. In OB3, when I made the tier list, he was significantly weaker because it was more of a DPSer's meta, and Achilles is the character who thrives off of his strength as a tank and just being really annoying, and then, you know, like pressuring out your squishy and then turning on your tanks and executing them. So, yeah, with penetration changes that have happened, he's become a lot stronger. Pridwin is really good now. Like, Thebes Pridwin is kind of a core tank build. Shield Splitter. Got a big buff. Really strong item on him. So Achilles is just, he's got like everything you want from a Joust tank. He absorbs the most hits out of pretty much any tank, and he's got an execute. So, you know, if a fight goes a little stalemate-ish, he can finish it off for you pretty easily. And the return to the double, sometimes triple tank meta we've seen, he does quite well. So, yep, Achilles, easy, top S tier. Very, very strong character. Agni. Mr. Agni. Let's see. Where do I want to put Agni? Put Agni in the A tier here. I believe he's a decent god. He's a solid god. He's very consistent. His early game is very weak. He doesn't really play until he's level 5, and Joust has an early pressure game mode. He'll get punished a lot for having a weak level 3 to 5. But he makes up for it heavy and how impossibly difficult it is to kill him. And with the patch coming up, I'm already looking forward to OB8. As we're making this OB7 patch, we reviewed the OB8 patch notes tentatively. It seems like mages are going to be significantly better in that patch. Soul Reaver is going to be much better. So Agni could see a bit more play. And I'm going to drop him into the A tier here because his damage is consistent. He's very safe. And he just really needs to hit level 5. His dash is just so long now, and getting 3 bombs at level 5 makes him a solid pick. His 2 also going further. Yep, so just a solid, consistent pick. Aladdin. This character is terrible in Joust. Very, very bad. Not like unplayable, but not good. I'll put him in the B tier here. Below average. If there was like a tier in between here, it'd be kind of nice. I probably would put Agni there, because that would be like a middle of the pack tier. But Aladdin is definitely just below middle of the pack. He gets bullied by bruisers, and getting bullied by bruisers is probably like the worst thing that you can have in Joust. He kind of makes up for it in that he has very good clear, because his 1 goes so far, and he's got a lot of mobility and can flip a fight with the lamp. But the fact that you can just have a half tank, half damage character just waddle up to him and just like make him run back to the base just by staring at him just makes it really bad. Like he doesn't deal enough damage to like an Achilles or a Bellona or a Chaac or a Mordred, and he just takes too much in return as well. So like if he tries to all in, he loses. If he tries to poke, he loses the poke war. They out-sustain him, and it's just a really bad time. Regardless of if you build strength, intelligence, like tanky Aladdin, like it really doesn't matter. He's just not cut out for the Joust game mode, unfortunately. And he's received a good number of nerfs that have made him weaker. And we're going to leave him in the B tier here. Amaterasu. So here's a character that has kind of fallen from grace quite substantially. I had her up here when I made the tier list, the last tier list, the first edition. She was new, or her aspect was new, and she was very strong. But that aspect has seen, I don't even know, like 5 iterations of nerfs now. So she has become significantly weaker. But due to her team fight presence, she's still a valuable character to have on your Joust team. The most efficient way to play Joust is to pick off one person at a time and play for your backliner, who is typically going to be an auto attacker. And Amaterasu, both with aspect and without, does a lot for your backline ADC. When she switches to red stance, and with aspect, she always switches to red stance. She gives a large attack speed aura up to 25% at max rank to her and any teammates that are within a 8.8 meter distance of her, which is, the same length as a standard dash or jump, like a Cupid dash or an Awilix jump or a Hun Batz jump. So, very, very significant attack speed buff, and, attack speed chins is the best way to kill tanks. Chins has seen a significant change in OB8. But Ama can go other attack speed items like Broggies and Golden Blade that'll make that work out. The trickiest thing about here is trying to pick whether you go attacks or whether you go aspect or no aspect. I personally prefer the no aspect, but he is a little weaker with no aspect in terms of kill potential. But the having the sustain is just so nice in Joust, especially where it's, you're trading back and forth, so the sustain becomes really impactful. But, just going to Facilitator Almond with, like, Berserkers and Shoguns, and then just get, like, Thebes, Pridwin, Broggy, / Golden Blade, / both with a War Flag will just make Ama just a really consistent, tanky presence that can enable your team very heavily if you have an auto attacker. So she is strong, but not Achilles strong. On her. Where do we put the lion? I am very tempted to drop the lion into the S tier category. But using my powers of restraint, I will drop him into the A category for now until I've seen him proven. I personally think he could be right here with Achilles. The S tier is going to kind of be reserved for, like, your must-pick, must-ban characters. And I don't know if I would slot on her there just yet. I think he definitely has the potential to be there, but we just haven't seen enough from him in really high competitive play. Like, I personally think he's up here, but we'll slot him into the A tier for now. I think On Her is one of, if not the strongest ADCs in the game for Joust. He just does everything you need. Like, similar to Smite 1. He's got the CC for either himself or for following up for the team. And that CC is very good for self-peel, right? The Impale knocking back, really good against meta characters like Cabrakan, like Achilles, like Ymir. Very hard for Sobek to plek an On Her that's on his game. He's got the beads to get away. He's got the pillar to block it off. He's got the ult even, if you got a quick enough reaction time there. So, On Her just really amazing for the ADC in Joust. Has big CC to set himself up or to follow up, and great peel for both himself or his teammates. And then he's got the shred, which is very important in a heavy tank-dominated game mode. On Her just does all the stuff you want. Aspect, no aspect. I prefer no aspect, but aspect can be good if you really just want to power down one guy really hard, and you have got a good enough setup like a Ymir on your team. So yeah, On Her's very good. Anubis. We're just gonna drop Anubis down here alongside Aladdin, but better. He's better than Aladdin for sure. Anubis ult level 5 is an execute. That thing hits so hard now. And it's much easier to hit it, right, than it was in Smite 1. So Anubis can get you snowballing really hard if you can get in the right position. But the tough one is getting into the right position. And if you don't get that lead, you're going to die to the tanks. Because even if you go lifesteal, they're going to get anti-heal. If you try and stand your ground, you're not going to one-shot a tank as Anubis that has Thieves Pridwin, right? And unless they're not going Aegis on the backliners, like, it's just going to be very difficult for you to actually kill somebody and very easy for them to kill you. So similar to Aladdin, where like you just get pressured out by bruisers, Anubis is kind of the same way. He's very reliant on your team to help you get through the game. But he does have a little bit more consistent burst than Aladdin in the Joust game mode, I would say. So I'll put him just above Aladdin, but not super useful. Aphrodite. So here's a character that we put very, very top of the line last tier list in OB3. And I fear we are going to have to continue that trend. This character is just super incredibly strong. There's an argument that she should be just below here, because you don't see her that much. Like, especially compared to where how strong I think she is versus how much she's played. I don't think Aphrodite is that crazy insane. But gosh darn it, when you play against an Aphrodite that knows what she's doing, it can be so annoying. Because she just will hyper protect one guy, just make him impossibly hard to dive. Especially for a lot of the meta tanks right now. It's very hard to dive into a Afro-linked carry when you're an Achilles or a Cabrakan. Or even like a Hercules. Hard to like push him around and whatnot. You need to be a very particular character to kind of like shrug off the Afro. Her only weakness is her early game. If you can get to level 5, get a couple items online, like the Aphrodite is just doing so much for her team. Obviously, you're playing more of a tank Aphrodite with this style instead of a damage Aphrodite. Oh yeah, just super incredibly strong because she can just protect one person very, very easily and just make your life impossibly difficult to actually kill her or anyone on her team. Yep, that's Afro. Aries. Here's a character that hard to say if he's like S tier, but I'm gonna drop him here alongside on her. Aries gives a lot of free stats. And with the most recent patch, OB7, nerfing like every item, those free stats that Aries gives are very, very significant. And I'm talking no aspect Aries. His passive in Smite 2, of course, is he gets a lot of strength and intelligence based on his player level and based on his protections from items and cooldown from items. And then he shares half of what he gives to himself to his team in an aura. And then, of course, that compounds with his second ability, which you should be leveling up after you've got a couple points in your chains. You just straight focus the two. Because it gives basic attack damage, protections of both, gives you the Aries health regen for 6 seconds, and you can extend that by another 4 seconds if you deal 3 instances of damage to a god while your 2 is active, and that extension will apply to anyone that you hit with the 2 originally as well. So Aries is a very big enabler character and very, very strong when you're playing fights in small groups often. And, you know, Joust is the game mode where you are playing fights in a small group often. So Aries is kind of a perfect fit for the game mode. He doesn't have as consistent CC as you might want from like your tank as good as a Cabrakan with all the stuns, or like a Bacchus with the belch into flop. But if you can operate the Aries correctly and you have a good character, maybe even a couple good characters to buff in the backline, let's say you went like Aries on her Alma, for example, those characters are going to play off each other incredibly well. Just so many buffs for each other, and, you know, together they can lock down opponents very, very effectively. And even give the top tiers a run for their money, like Achilles and Afro. If I'm Achilles Afro, like I'm gonna have trouble against Aries on her Alma. Moving on. Artemis. Oh, gosh. Where do we want to put Artemis? Shoot. Shoot. I'm going to put Artemis in high on B here. You should not play Artemis with Aspect. The trap is too good. The CC chain is super long. The trap CCs for 1.75 seconds. The boar scales from 0.8 to 1.3, I think. 0.91. No, the boar starts at 0.9, I think. 0.9, then to 1, then to 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 is the stun duration of Artemis boar. So she has a, 3-second plus CC chain, hard CC chain with that, which is incredibly strong. But her pressure in lane and how long it takes her to scale is incredibly long. So unless you're against very particular picks, like, I don't know, like a Mordred who's very useful to cripple him. And there isn't like a long list of characters where against tanks in particular where it's like, yay, I'm Artemis against this guy, So, like, she's just okay. Her late game is incredibly solid, but getting there just it's a little bit too unrealistic. You have good poke, but chances are you're going to go against someone with better poke. So can definitely be good in the right situations. If you're against like the most passive comp of all time, like you're against like I don't know, Geb Fenrir, and they just have 0 poke and they're all in, and you're going to get good value from your trap, good value from your ult, and it's fairly hard for them to dive you effectively because of all that. But if they play a poke character, it's going to be depressing. Like if they play a Chaac, they play like an Odin, they play like 10 of the 20, 10 of the 15 like picks that people are often going to go when they're trying to play tanks in Joust, you're going to be in trouble. So just a good character that just doesn't have the same tools that On Her does, the same like immediateness and instant scaling that On Her guy's got. So just if you compare, Artemis is just a bit worse. New list? Indeed, Seth A. Seth, thank you for the primer, by the way. Alma with the 2 million nerfs that she got? Yep. Because if you want to play Joust, you're actually going to go no Aspect Alma. And no Aspect Alma has not gotten nerfed. In fact, no Aspect Alma might get buffed. And Alma just fits the game mode well. But she'll probably be on the lower end of the A tier here. We'll see as we play some more characters. We can always change it up. Athena. Athena is going to be a B tier tank, unfortunately. She's just a bit below the better tanks. She does one thing, and that's taunt. And it's an 18-second cooldown. Her ult is alright, but she just gets outshined by the other tanks because of the presence that they have, and she doesn't. Like, she can only do her thing ever so often. Meanwhile, you've got Cabrakans running around with his cooldowns up all the time, just dropping Pridwin shields, engaging constantly. Same with like Odin, same with Sobek, same with even like Cerb, same with Bacchus. Athena's just really tied to these long cooldowns that don't allow her to fight super often. And in Joust, you're going to get punished super hard for that. It's just a very high-paced game mode where if you establish a lot of pressure, you can take the buffs, then you will just steamroll people. It's pressure-based game mode. So Athena just doesn't fit as great, and still doesn't in Joust 2. Similar to our next character, Awilix, who we will be dropping in the C tier. You don't want an Awilix on your team, guys. You really don't. She's completely team reliant, has 0 poke, needs time to scale, gets poked out by the bruisers, doesn't have the range that Aladdin does, which is a similar type role character to her. It's just not good. You can combo it with the proper knock-up stuff like Bacchus and like Vulcan and whatnot, and have like a bit of a gimmicky team. But if they pick a solid front line that's just going to walk up to you and fight you, you're just going to do nothing. So, yeah, she's just kind of not very good. Unlike Bacchus, who will be up here in the A tier Probably in the middle right here. I think he's a little worse than these guys, but a little better than these guys. Bacchus has very consistent, solid CC. 3 different hard CCs. You know, his ult, he's got a nice belch. They buffed his belly flop so that it slows for longer, meaning that you'll have that 20% belly flop slow for 1 second after people land. I believe it's a 2-second slow, but, you know, they're in the air for half of that, so. Yeah, Bacchus looking good. They buffed his 1 as well, so he's got more protection scaling when he whacks after chugging with no aspect on. So he's just a solid character. I wouldn't say he's like... I'd say he's just under the stronger or strongest tanks in the game mode. Like, he's good, he's solid, but he's not like, oh my god, they got Bacchus, we are so done for, you know? So that's why he's going to go a little bit under this Aries, and as you'll see this list populate, he'll be under some of these other tanks too. Moving on, Baron Samedi. This guy is going to be right here. Yep. Baron Samedi, mainly as a bruiser tank, is going to be in our A tier here. He's a pretty solid counter pick against a lot of the top tier tanks in particular. He's got a decent matchup. Like, his 3 is what gives him real solid matchups here. It's really good setup. And then, of course, his 2 giving that slow immunity and that movement speed boost can be very hard for people to play into. And then, of course, he's got the brew. So he's just got a lot of tools. Reduces attack speed, reduces power, roots people, slows people, speeds people up, slow immunity. And then, of course, the ultimate ability is really nice control. So, infamously good in Smite 1 against characters like Achilles and Aries. He's not as powerful against them since he's lost some of the strength of his kit in Smite 2 because 1 relic game mode and they don't want him to be too powerful in terms of how much CC he can apply. But he's still very solid in a lot of situations because he offers a lot of utility and a really solid lockdown. His 3 is still as annoying as ever in Smite 2. It's a wind-up slow into an AoE mez. I think it's a 1.5 second mez. So, can be quite solid for your team in the right matchups. Probably don't want to play him against too many jump characters, but against, you know, your Achilles, your Afros, your Aries, your Bacchus, even Bacchus, you can lock them down pretty well. Bellona! Bellona. So, Bellona. Bellona's either like a bottom A or top B. I'm going to drop her bottom A. I'm thinking we might have to make a new tier at some point here. Because there is some room to drop people in the cracks here. Maybe separate this out a little bit. But we'll see as we add more characters. Bellona is very similar to Ama, but with less consistent sustain and a little bit more, a little bit of like a side grade to her team fight, right? Bellona is going to be pretty solid against the ADCs in particular, but she's got like no poke, and like we said, it's hard for her to sustain in a fight because she's got to use her 3 and auto attack things, unlike Ama who just presses 1. But her ult, Bellona's ult, is insane. Especially in Joust. It's such a massive protection and big strength intelligence buff that if you play around that Bellona ult, you can make a lot of things happen. Especially if you pair it with a character that's going to abuse those additional stats, like an on her, like Aries, just stacking all these team buffs. You can become very powerful very easily. I do think Alma's slightly better, slightly more consistent than the Bellona. But that aspect Bellona, giving the block stacks, sharing the healing, and being able to play those fights as a team with her ult, do make her pretty dangerous at times. I do think she's a decent character. Agni, Bellona below Baron? Oh, Agni below Bellona and Baron. I don't think that's insane, dude. I don't think that's insane. Agni's good, but I mean, he's in the same category as them, you know, that says something. Unlike this Cabrakan guy who is shooting straight up to the S tier, I believe this character is just above, maybe just next to Achilles, maybe interchangeable. Cabrakan, he's kind of a really high priority pick ban character. A very, very insane CC. Has an extra ability in Smite 2. He was already a top dog in Smite 1. Just so tanky, and he abuses the meta items very effectively. Has strength scaling to use the shield splitter. He's got the Thebes Pridwin combo. Just works so incredibly well on him. He's an Omega tank with a lot of hard CC that's really hard to mess up. You just have to know how to position with him properly, and this guy just does so much. So we're going to leave Cabrakan right at the tippy top of that list alongside Achilles, Afro. Pendulum, yeah, indeed. Hong is a better tank than either of them. Ah, yes. All right, Cerberus. Cerberus. I'm going to put Cerberus in the same category as Bacchus and just under him. So Cerberus is the newest god released to Smite 2. He is almost bar for bar the same character, actually. Like, his numbers are almost exactly the same across the board. And unfortunately, being exactly the same across the board means you're a little bit weaker in Smite 2. Because you're not getting those insane +1s like Sobek Execute, Cabrakan having an extra 2, Aries having his passive change in a way that ends up being a pretty massive buff. Like, Serb, man. Like, he's just Serb now. Like, he's still Serb. And Serb is good, but he's not as good as these naughty +1 tank things that have happened in Smite 2. He is a very good anti-healer guy still. You know, I'll pick him into Afro almost 100% of the time. That's just a better tank open. But, yeah, he doesn't feel as crazy as he did in Smite 1, honestly. So we're going to put him alongside Bacchus and just a little under, but he's still strong. Still a 1.5 second stun on his 1. Still has the same prot tread on his 2. So if you're playing with a mage comp, he feels a little bit better. He reduces their magic procs so that you can get bigger mystical procs, bigger Pridwin procs, you know, all that kind of juicy stuff going. So he's still very strong, but not as strong as he once was. Chronos. We love Chronos. I'm going to put Chronos above Bacchus. Under on her. I kind of want to make a bigger gap here, and we might be doing that as we add more characters to this list. But as of now, we're going to slot Chronos just under on her here. He is a DPS machine, this Chronos guy. And he's got a good amount of CC with the Root Cripple and the Polymorph. However, it's a lot easier to dive him than it is to dive an on her. So the differences I've noticed, I played a lot of on her and a lot of Chronos over the past few months. And Chronos shreds objectives a lot harder than on her. Chronos has a built-in 25% protection shred on his 1, which is absolutely insane. It's a protection shred. It's not personal penetration. You're giving this to your whole team, reducing their protections, both physical and magical, by 25% when your 1 is maxed out, which makes Chronos a very, very dangerous character, even without a lot of pen. Like, if you just have an Xe and a Chins, like, you are shredding through, you know, half their prots, basically, and really, really destroying them with your Chins procs. So, very, very, very powerful character. But like I said, much easier to dive him than it is to dive on her, so I think he's a little weaker, as you can actually kind of kill him easier. Doesn't have a jump, doesn't have a CC immune ult or ability in his kit, so it doesn't have the OP slow that doubles as a wall. So, yeah. But he does have better objective damage, so, you know, it's a little bit of a side grade on her. And we'll net him a high placement on this list, but not too high. Chaac. This character has remained consistent, still very strong. One of the best warrior/bruiser characters in Joust still. I'm going to drop him... We'll drop him above the ADCs for now. Very consistent poke. His 1 and his 2 are base 8-second cooldown. In Joust, you're poking a lot, right? So it makes Chaac quite potent. He's not quite as crazy as like an Achilles type because he doesn't have that execute, but his team fight is very powerful, able to drop heavy slows over the battlefield. Of course, he's got the big silence and just a lot of impact throughout the game from Chaac. The only thing he's lacking is the CC, which is kind of a big thing. But the fact that he can control so much space and have his 1-2 up so often. Make him very, very potent in Joust, and you can just really snowball games away with this character, aspect or no aspect. Both are solid. So we'll leave Chaac nice and high on that list. Cupid. Cupid. Cupid is another, like, he's another Chronos, kind of. I'm hesitant on where to put these guys. I'm going to drop Cupid under Chronos, but he could very easily be above. His sustain is incredible with aspect on. You always want aspect on in Joust. And his shred, of course, he's got that ADC shred, which can never be looked down upon. His early game is much better than Artemis. It's a little harder to kill him than it is to kill Chronos, I think. But his shred isn't as potent as Chronos. His all-in is similar, though. So that's where we're going to leave them kind of neck and neck here. They probably will be next to each other for the rest of the list. But yeah, Cupid just makes fights so much easier for your team because of all the CC he brings. His 1 with aspect acting like a life binder. His ult providing a large area of denial. Even his 2 and 3, like Cupid got a +1 to every single portion of his kit. So he's just he's just a strong character, like much better than he was in Smite 1. And it just makes him very consistent if your team can find pressure without you first. Like Chronos and On Her will help generate pressure a lot. Cupid doesn't really do that as much. His wave clear, especially with aspect, is much worse. So you're a lot more reliant on your team. So that's why we're going to drop him down a little lower. But his impact in the fight is so crazy good with all the healing and all the CC that he can bring. And we're going to leave him nice and high up there. Unlike Danza, who is going to fall down to the B tier. He's an ADC and does good damage, so we'll put him just above Artemis, I think. But he doesn't have that oomph factor that your On Her, your Chronos, your Cupid have. He spends a lot more mana than them. He's a lot less consistent with getting CC on people. It's hard to confirm Danza abilities without actually just like straight up ulting into people. Like throwing out a max range 1 is not feasible. Hitting people with your 2 and consistently getting the taunt on them it's not happening. You can dive him similarly to Chronos, kind of. I guess it's a little harder to dive with Danza. But he just doesn't scale as well as those other 3. He doesn't have as good tools as they do. You can definitely play him, kind of like you can play Artemis. Like they're just lacking like things here and there and everywhere that will make them a high tier ADC class. Fenrir. We're gonna drop Fenrir probably right above Mr. Bacchus here. With aspect, this character is quite a sight to behold. Gets 170 free protections by rank or by level 20 from using his 3. The 3 kind of gets neutered in the damage department, but it still procs item effects, so you can still go like Chins and Broggies and Golden Blade and all those goodies to make it deal good damage. But it's really those protections that Fenrir gets from his 3 that make him crazy. Like with Pridwen being such a meta item right now, like just going Thebes, Pridwen, and support starter, like Fenrir fits that mold perfectly. Can get very active at very specific points. You know, you're playing around that jump stun and that ult, especially if people don't have immunities to it. And he can be very, very mobile and hard to lock down, right? Because he's got 2 jumps and that CC immune ult that can go very far, as well as displacing one of your team members. And then with the aspect also, he's got his 2, giving buffs to his whole team, including his minion wave. So Fenrir brings a lot to the table with the aspect on. And it'll net him a high placement in this tier list, or on this tier list. So yeah, just provides a lot to your team overall. Put him high up. Big Pridwen shields, really solid dive, very difficult to lock down, just a little bit slower early game. And you're susceptible to getting pressured out if they select the proper stuff and play the right way. So that's why he's not higher. He's got so many good things going for him. Unlike Geb, who is going to be high here in the B tier. Definitely better than Athena, but he's another one of those I'm just a tier below the better tanks because he just doesn't have a lot of presence, this guy. He sits there and it's like, CC my teammates so I can save them. You know, in Joust, it's a lot about that initiative. You want to really bring the pressure and go at them as hard as you can, as quickly as you can, as early as you can. And Geb is, you know, the antithesis of that. He's very defensive, very peel-oriented, which can be good in specific scenarios. You know, if you have like a hyper-aggressive character alongside a Geb to help bail him out, it can be good. But it's just not as consistent, not as feasible as just, let's just pick Aries and Achilles and Cabrakan and stuff and just run it down at them when what are they going to do? You know, he doesn't have that same pressure factor that they do. So it's going to net him a little lower here on the list. Hades. Hades. Boy, oh boy. I'm going to put Hades alongside Anubis down here. I think this character has potential. He maybe could be like a lower A tier character. Hades feels wrong in Smite 2. I think Hades is significantly better in Smite 2, actually. And I am tempted to put him at the bottom of A. But ain't nobody experimenting with this guy. He's just too volatile in Joust. Because he doesn't get to like run the lane like he does in like 1v1 solo lane, right? So it's hard to actually get that scaling going on him, and it feels really good to go like full damage Hades, and you just are not getting away with that in Joust unless you're playing against Buffoon 1, 2, and 3. You know, like they're not letting you get there. But he got a very powerful +1, getting a free ability when he uses his ultimate, which you could think maybe would put him up higher, but it's just hard to actually get away with this pick because if he can't just like jump in freely or walk up to the wave and 2-3 it, like this character just gets so much worse. So you have to play like this rat style as Hades in Joust because he can't really clear comfortably when there are 3 people staring him down as he attempts to approach the wave. So yeah, it just makes it a lot tougher to play him and just not as consistent as some of his counterparts like Hecate, who will be up here as one of our mages here. Round Agni, I think I'm going to put her just above Agni. One of the best mages in this game mode. Very sudden burst with decent CC, and she has some of the best range out of any mage in the game mode. So we'll put her up here, but definitely on the lower end. I think that in terms of DPS classes, the ADCs are going to be significantly more consistent than your mages, just because they just offer the DPS more often, and this can be more useful in a team fight because of that, as long as you can play around them and play for them. But Hecate, with her range, just remains super safe, very hard to kill, but will struggle in the tank killing department, which is why she's just not going to be as good as those ADC shredding types. But yeah, very good clear, or decent clear, solid team fight damage. You just have to play a nice, slow, methodical approach, similar to how you have to play with another mage like an Agni. Just take very bite-sized fights, but her clear or her poke is just very consistent, low cooldown, and can be very useful, especially if you can get a kill and buff up one of your tanks and just make them swing so much harder, like you're just dropping a free disco passive on them type of thing. And if you have a hybrid scaler that you're buffing like a Cabrakan or a Chaac, like you can just make that guy run the game by giving him a early Hecate buff. Hercules. Okay, this character was like Omega broken, and then he got like Omega nerfed because they took his 3 prots down super heavy. But he just needs a little bit more time to ramp up, is the difference now. So I'm going to drop him tentatively just under Chaac. I think they're about the same in terms of strength, Hercules and Chaac. I am very tempted to drop him under the ADCs. I think I will do that. Yeah, I'm going to drop him under them. Takes him a bit longer to scale Mr. Hercules. His CC is still very, very potent. His 2-1 combo, very useful in the Joust game mode. He's got a lot of burst. and the solid displacement. And very consistent once he gets a couple tank items online. His 3, the nerf it got, made it very useless in terms of the protections it gives unless you have protections built. So it scales off of your built protections and gives very low base protections up front. So once this guy gets like a Thebes online, or a Thebes and a Pridwin online, like he can play again. But before that point, he's kind of, you're just looking to fish for like 2-1s as him, basically. And it makes it a lot more difficult to play him because, like, if you're just sitting there fishing for 2-1s and you're not that tanky yet, and they just engage on you with like a Baron 3, and they start wailing on you like an Achilles who's actually tanky early game, or a Cabrakan who's actually tanky early game, or an Aries who's actually tanky early game can just run up to you and just start whacking you, start hard CCing you down, and get very, very difficult to actually survive and sustain through that early game as the Hercules, which, wasn't as big an issue for him before, but is now. So he's knocked down a little bit, but still a very strong character. Those cooldown resets with the pendulum blade that's buff that's coming in OB8 going to be quite powerful for Hercules. We could see him move up on this list for sure with the coming patch. But for now, we'll put him in a nice, strong A position. Mulan! Mulan. Okay. I'm thinking Mulan is a bottom of A character. That's what I'm thinking. She was like god awful for forever. But with the changes to penetration and tanks being more relevant, I think she has started to tiptoe her way into relevance. Not to the point where I think she's among the higher ranking tanky guys, so maybe I should drop her into the top of B, but I think she's like out in the shadows, like you got your other guys, your Chaac, your Herc, and Fenrir and whatnot out in the limelight, like enjoying the sun, like basking in it, and they're partying, they're grooving, and then you got Mulan, like, she's kind of like in the corner, hanging out in the shadows, looking for her opportunity. Like she's kind of there. She's there, but she's not there. She's got good base damage. Her 3 is her strongest tool in the Joust game mode. Can put someone out of position and set up a lot of abilities for your team. Of course, very, very strong, and you don't really counter it super well. It's kind of like a 1-part Hercules combo that's harder to miss and is harder to counter. Like Hercules, you might pluck your teammate and then you just, wall them off. But Mulan, will pull them to you, and you can kind of wall it off. It's a lot harder. And she only has to do like a 1 ability to pull off her thing versus Hercules, who has to do 2. So it's easier to separate a Hercules from his combo than it is a Mulan. And then, of course, with all the other numbers in play, Mulan has a lot more freedom to operate. And with people not insta-killing her because of the penetration nerfs, she can keep doing her stuff for a longer period of time. And she's one of the best Pridwin users, because once her 3 gets some training to it, she gets protections from it, and her ult, of course, gives her percent protections while channeling it, so she can get some very large Pridwin shields going and get a lot of value from that, and be really useful in the fight with how long she's able to live because of those shields. And yeah, all that CC and movement. Similar to Hun Batz, as we talk about CC and movement, I'm going to drop Mr. Hun Batz at a solid just above Fenrir angle. He could be just above, he could be just below, but I think this character is very strong in the game mode. Provides a lot, even after the nerf to his ultimate only allowing you to fear people for 1 second total. He just brings a lot of disruption, mobility. He very Fenrir-esque. Very, very Fenrir-esque. Not as naturally tanky as Fenrir, but will deal a lot more consistent damage. Aspect or no aspect, I think it's a little better to play him with aspect and going jungle starter. So you can go support starter, you can go no aspect. You got options with this guy. I personally prefer him the more hybrid route right now, with a shield splitter, pendulum blade, Pridwin being your first 3 items, because you can afford to be a little less tanky with like a Thebes Pridwin type. since you're so bouncy with his 3 and his jump, and then the stun on his 2, and then of course you've got the ult for a lot of CC. And it just makes him very useful in the Joust game mode. His clear, of course, isn't that great, but the fact that he can just maneuver around the fight so easily and just be a real pest for the enemy team, this makes him a very consistent pick in Joust and makes him, in my opinion, quite strong. So we'll drop him up into the middle of A here. Izanami. Izanami is going to go in the A tier, but on the lower end, I believe. We're going to put her... We'll put her, like, between Bacchus and Cerberus, I guess. Because she does exceptionally copious amounts of damage, but she is much easier to kill than these other guys. This core, like, 3 is probably not going to change for the rest of this list. But Izanami, before CC buffering was removed from leaps, could definitely challenge those guys. In her current state, it's a little bit too easy, I would say, to lock her down to the point where I would put her alongside these guys. But her damage is so crazy. You cannot let this character free cast because she chunks you. She has built-in Griffin Wing into her basic attacks because as she gains attack speed, her basic attack travel time goes down. I don't think it actually says that in her ability descriptions, but she carried that over from Smite 1 to 2. That was one of the buffs she got a while ago because it was really awkward, like using her boomerang autos in particular. So, like, the more attack speed you have on Izanami, the faster your basic attacks travel, and it's very easy to hit those. They're real zingers. She gets percent pen naturally in her kit, similar to how Chronos gets it, except she has to get low to get it, of course, so, makes it a little bit worse. And she's got a 60% slow ultimate ability for 2 seconds. 60%, it's a 2-second silence, and a slow. So she will be laser beaming you when she ults you late game and is able to get those basic attacks in. Like, you have to deal with this character or she will destroy your whole team. Like, the DPS coming from this god, it has higher potential than any of these guys. But it's the fact that she's not as safe and you can, die for a bit easier. Just so positioning oriented and whatnot. You need to be insulated so well to make her really useful. Those struggles will put her a little lower here. And of course, her clear is very good with boomerang autos, as long as you can walk up and do it. Jing Wei. Jing Wei is kind of like opposite Izanami. Whereas, like, she's got decent damage, but she trades out dealing like Izanami damage for all the safety. And I think I hesitate to put Jing Wei kind of in a Mulan situation, actually. I think this character actually is not bad. She is playable. Bro said cheeks. Jing Wei is playable. I'm telling you guys, she is playable. Well into Herc Sobek. Yeah, she does well into some of the higher tier tank matchups. And her passive is incredibly useful in the game mode because, like, you get poked out, you just press B and you come back in half a second. They reverted some of her nerfs too, to the point where she's actually, useful again, clearing the wave, and can participate pretty heavily in fights, but not as consistent as, like, these higher up ADCs. Like, you see a common thread between, like, Cupid on her, Chronos, even Izanami, is they have really, really good setup for themselves. Jing Wei, not as much. She gives that up for safety, right? So I do think that she is a consistent pick that you could, like, last pick and she'd be fine. She'd be solid, better than, like, a Danza or an Artemis. Very difficult to bully out of Jing Wei in comparison to those guys, so I think she's got a leg up on them. But she's treading that, like, middle ground between, like, being a really solid ADC that can lock you down and really enforce her will on you and just slay you, and, like, whatever the other end of the spectrum is, the ADC that just has damage but hard to do it, without getting absolutely squashed by the frontliners. So she's on a weird level there. Jing Wei. Capri the hug bug. I want to put Khepri in A, but I'm going to put Khepri in B. Top of B. He could also do that straddling the hemispheres thing here with A and B. But I think he's just like under the better Guardians or the better tanks. Because he's more abusable than them. Similar to Geb, but he's a little better than Geb. Like Geb like kind of just stares at you and then just, peels. But Khepri can be fairly aggressive and assist his teammates a little more consistently in the aggressive department than Geb can, I would say. Uh, I'm kind of convincing myself and dropping Khepri in A right now, honestly. The +1 he got to his 2 is actually really good for clear, but he's just such a like a pacifist character, I find, which is, kind of the opposite of what you want in Joust. You want like pedal to the metal, smash him into next week characters in Joust, right? And Khepri is kind of the opposite of that. That being said, you can play that kind of play style, like a Khepri with a shock. You got all the CC from the Khepri and all the damage from the shock, and the shock can go crazy, and you can just Khepri ult him and bring him back, right? While your ADC goes absolutely bonkers alongside you, and you can play that like middle area while your diver dives super deep and your ADC stays with you and you CC for them. Very useful with like a double fizz comp too, because Khepri's 2 is physical protection shred, right? Got the damage mitts on the Khepri 2 as well. Help out both you and your team, so he actually is a playable character that I'm kind of convincing myself to put in the A tier right now, but I'll leave him here. I'll leave him here. Just for the time being. Kukulkan. Okay. Kukulkan. What do we want to do with you? I think I put Kukulkan in A last time. I'm gonna put him top B this time. Character remains very hard to kill. High range. Definitely playable like Home Dog just said. But the consistency of his impact in the fight is just completely tied to his 1, right? So in the right situations can be useful. But you can just get scaled on by, well, maybe scaled on is the wrong word. You can get stuck in a point where you just need this time to scale and they just aren't going to give it to you. Especially in a Thebes Pridwin meta. Like before, when people were building like singular defense types, like Stampede and Talisman and stuff, it was a bit easier to be a Kukulkan because, you don't need to chew through all that defense. But mages in general are going to have a little bit more difficult of a time getting through all those defenses. So Thebes Pridwin it just sucks so much. Like your Kukulkan 3 just doesn't deal damage. And it won't for so long, for too long, to the point where I feel like he's weaker than he used to be. Late game, he's a menace because it's just he's Merlin-esque where it's so hard to kill him, right? Even though you would think he might not be that hard to dive. It's just the range and the coverage he can provide can be so good. But in a fast-paced, pressure-based game mode, you're just going to get slammed trying to do that a lot of the time if the other team is picking properly and playing properly. So we're going to leave him there. Loki. Loki's going down here with my good friend Awilix. Barely any pressure. Incredibly team reliant. I think he's just barely better than Awilix, but man, maybe not by much. He just doesn't really offer you very much here. He's gonna get bruisered on, just like Loki, or just like Awilix is, where it's just like the tanky Mordred walks up to you and you're just cooked. Like you can't do anything to him. You can't kill him. He outdamages you. Like it's just miserable. And he just will not get through the tanks. Unless you're against like triple squishy and they allow you to scale to 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes and get some couple items online, like you're just useless. Medusa. This character has been nerfed to heck. I think she's hanging on by a thread at the top of B, but could probably straddle and be near Jing Wei. And it does kind of make me want to pull Jing Wei down, honestly. But I just don't think there's going to be an opportunity where I want to pick Medusa if I can pick on her, Chronos, Cupid, or Izanami. Like there might be like a side grade opportunity where I'll go Jing Wei over one of those four because I have really good matchups. But these other four are just gonna have better or similar matchups to me as a Medusa. So I just don't see it. Like Medusa's just been nerfed too much. Kind of is a like wet noodle character. Doesn't feel very promising to play. So yeah, she's just weaker. If she got like a buff or two, she can easily spring back up, but she's just in not the most amazing state right now. In my opinion, in comparison to the stronger characters. You're winning all your arena games with Medusa. Keep doing that, Freddies. All right, Merlin. We're going to drop Merlin. Where are we going to drop Merlin? I'm actually tentatively thinking of dropping Merlin bottom A or top B. I think he's actually playable. But not by a lot. I'm going to drop Merlin bottom A. That's where we're going with this. Yep. I did it. The more I look at this, the more I want to just drag every single mage down to top B. It's really messing with me right now. But we'll leave it here for now. Merlin. So I think Aspect Merlin is actually better than normal Merlin. Because it halves the cooldown of your ultimate at rank 1. And Merlin's problem in Joust was always that he just didn't have enough access to his stuff. And the Aspect solves that. The only problem is you don't know what you're going to get out of it. So it can be a little bit trickier. But I do think he is a very playable character. And you can do some very weird builds, some very freakish builds with the Aspect on. Some like sustain heavy builds with like Shield of the Phoenix and like heavy cooldown with like World Stone and Soul Gem. And then you can get stuff like Onis. And then you have this like Battle Mage build where you just have really solid sustain. And then you slap in like an Ob Shard and a Totem of Death. And you have decent damage with your pen. You can do that. You can also play like normal Merlin, like normal build Merlin, and deal a lot of damage, but I don't know. That Aspect build is pretty funny. Especially before the Soul Reaver buff that's coming in OB8. After that, then I think Soul Reaver buff will make this character even stronger in Aspect. But we'll find out. I'm tentatively going to put him up in the A category, though. No way, he's above Agni, too, he says. That's where he's going. Mordred. I think that Mordred mayhapsingly may be better than Achilles. But I'm going to put him above Chaac. Yeah. Mordred, with his new Aspect, has so much access to abilities, and that Shield of the Phoenix change actually has made him better, I think, than what he was before his nerf, which is actually crazy to say, because Mordred received a massive nerf. His 1 went from 12 scaling down to 10-second cooldown to 14 scaling down to 10, and his 2 with Aspect on, you only get a half-second refund on your 1, 2, and 3 when you hit a successful basic attack with your 2 active, instead of a 1-second refund on your non-ult abilities when you successfully basic attack with 2 active. So, yeah, I really thought he was going to get a lot weaker, but I finished grinding Radiant Mordred out today, actually, as I'm recording this. And he feels about as strong, if not stronger, because they buffed Shield of the Phoenix to restore 3% of your health instead of 2. 3% of your health and mana, of course. And then, what else did they do? They did nerf Shield of the Phoenix down to 20 protections, though. And I think it has 150 health or something. But, yeah, that sustain that he gets from that feels really, really nice. Like, I actually feel stronger. I really do. on Mordred than I did the patch before. There are definitely some weaker points, but just feels so incredibly powerful. You think he is better than Achilles? Yeah, I am tentatively thinking he could be better than Achilles. But yeah, we're gonna leave it like this for now. Like I think the head-to-head matchup, Mordred Achilles, does favor Mordred. He's very similar to King Arthur in that regard, where it's like head-to-head, he's gonna beat the tank because he just has so much more damage. But in an actual team fight, like I might prefer the tankiness from the Achilles, you know, like a little harder to stop the Achilles. But we'll see. This list can definitely change. Neith. Neith. So Neith's a burst mage. She can also be an auto attacker that attacks very, very quickly. And I think she's a solid A character. But she's going to be kind of like down here for me. She can definitely do stuff as a burst mage or an auto attack focused character. And she's got some pretty heavy burst. Very surprising, very heavy burst. That is pretty reliable. She's pretty easy to dive still. But she can be, you know, relatively safe, having the slow back on her 3. And she can play from a pretty far distance and offer that nice Neith ultimate. Or, you know, you can be that really Gatling gun-esque Neith that just shoots really fast with the aspect on. So she's got a lot going for her in that it's kind of unpredictable what she's going to do to you. You can make a lot of different choices based on how the draft shakes out and what playstyle you're looking for. She's going to be pretty good. Pretty solid. Nemesis. Nemesis. I think Nemesis is playable. She is very playable. Which is kind of crazy to say. I'm going to put her down here. Dude, I'm so tempted to just drag these mages down to B. I'm this close, guys. Like, I might actually convince myself to do it by the end of this. But we're going to drop Nemesis in here. I think Nemesis is just one of the bottom of the better assassins. So, like, Hun Batz, Fenrir are pretty easily the best. And, well, we might make another addition there. But Nemesis is, like, just under those guys. Doesn't have the hard CC that they got. But her trading potential is pretty darn solid. And the shield splitter fits her nicely. And, she, you know, she can be very useful in the team fight, reducing all those protections on those tanky targets. With that consistent poke, her slice and dice being a 10-second base cooldown. And the shield splitter on top of that. It's almost like you have 2 slice and dices, you know. And then she does have that shield bug. If that shield bug stays in the game, we definitely are keeping her here. Where if you stack her 3 with more shields, you heal off of those shields as well while your 3 is active. And then if you get hit by a non-god source, then you heal more than you're supposed to. There's another bug with that. So I actually find Nemesis to be pretty good. Weirdly enough. Honestly, the reason I put her here is because I think she's better than these guys. But yeah, we could definitely see some downward movement with that. We might just like cut the A tier off somewhere and just drop them all down into B. But we'll find out. Nuwa is going to go here. Too much scaling time. You can be annoying. Decent. But it takes her too long before she's actually, like, impactful. Then we're going to drop her down here. Odin is way the heck up here. I think Odin is better than Chaac, actually. But worse than Mordred. Odin with the shield splitter, with the Thieves, Pridwin being meta, has climbed quite a few rungs. He's been buffed, like, back-to-back times, I think. Maybe even 3 times now. To the point where he's just quite powerful. His base damage is super, super relevant. Odin Mordred S. If we made another tier above this, I would do that. And make like an S or S plus tier. And then I would leave Afro in the dust, probably. It'd probably just be like, what? Like Cab and Sobek up there. But we'll get there when we get there. There's room for edits. You guys give me your input as we progress. And we might actually start slashing categories and making new categories as needed. I'm trying to keep this Simple enough for now. We'll see. But yeah, Mordred Odin, just very strong. Odin just super, super good, man. Like, especially in terms of facilitator role, his 3 giving 30% attack speed to him and his teammates at rank 1, and then 40% once he's rank 5. It's very, very solid. And the cage having reduced cooldown, so they can't always shell your cage. And even then, like, you don't need the cage for the trap. Sometimes it's just better for the disruption in the fight, and then you just turn and play with your ADC and just dominate whoever's sectioned off. But yeah, Odin just so, so good. Just such relevant poke, and just very difficult to kill, and buffs his team very well. Pele! Pele, 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 Pele. We're going to drop Pele. I'll give her a top of B. And we'll put her under Medusa, actually. Yeah, we'll leave her here. Pele got a nice adjustment to her +1. Her 2, the dash her 2 does, is no longer tied to her 3. And it works like a Bari dash, where it's just a burst of movement speed, and you can move any which direction that you choose, and you can change direction if need be. She's just very good all in, but she gets beat down by the bruisers. But she does more than her Loki and Awilix, her counterparts, so we're going to put her a little higher than them. She's got a little bit more presence than them. The passive allows her to swing fights a little bit more, but not too much to be said about Pele. She's just not as good as her better counterparts. With a tanky build, like, she just does less than these guys with tanky builds. I keep clicking on them and opening a freaking link. So she's just a little worse than them. Poseidon. I think Poseidon is the best mage in Joust. Like the mage. Actually building intelligence items and stuff. He has very consistent burst. His clear is incredible. He can outsecure Sunders at the start of the game. It's actually pretty crazy. He can outsecure Sunders in general throughout the game, because his burst is really good. No aspect on this guy. They might actually buff Poseidon aspect at some point, I think. But I'm actually going to put him above. Dude, why is Baron all the way up here? This is actually crazy. I need to get rid of this guy. He's too high. He's too high above me. I'm going to put him down here. But I think Poseidon, very solid. Very, very solid. One of the few mages you can actually get away with and feel good about, because he's got really solid objective damage. Like, you look at Hecate, you look at Merlin, you got Agni. Like, these guys are good pokers, good in fights. But the second you go to that last night, like, it's taking you 5 years to clear that thing. Poseidon does not have that problem. And his clear is better than theirs. He's got better burst around those objectives, and just makes him really useful. With that Nimble Ring build, which is getting buffed, he's going to be even better. Princess Bari. This is probably the hands-down best god in the game right now. Goes without saying. The nerfs she's gotten have not been nearly enough. Her damage is still exceptionally overtuned. And that really is all there is to say. She just does more than other characters. She just hits too hard. And in Joust, having a DPS character that comes out the gate swinging as hard as she does, it's just incredible. Her team fight is insane with her ult, even preventing executes. And her just damage throughout the game. Every stage of the game, this character is hitting immensely hard. It is not tied to mana, it's just tied to cooldowns. And she just does too much. She really does. So, nerfs will probably see her drop a bit. But as of now, probably the best character in the game. Ra. I think Ra is among these mages down here. He's a very playable character. He does a lot of damage with his Smite 2 changes, giving those empowered basic attacks on his 2. That make him deal very consistent damage, but he's a bit easier to dive, though it is hard to actually kill him when you do dive him, because he's got so much return damage, and his heal, giving him those protections and healing, does make him difficult to kill. But if you get the right stuff on him, he will die. So, he's not as safe as these other guys. So we'll leave him down here. Just good burst, good objective damage. Like, he's another one of those, like Poseidon's, where once you get to the Bull Demon, or you get to the Lost Knight, he can actually still DPS it. So, yep, that's Ra. Rom is going to be with Medusa. Maybe just above her. Doesn't have a lot of early presence, this guy. With Aspect, he attacks just so slow, and without Aspect, it feels, to me at least, that he doesn't deal enough damage fast enough. Doesn't really have that much self-setup either, without Aspect. Those slows are really what bogs people down when you play him. So he's just not as good as your other ADCs. Either the safety and consistent burst of Jing Wei, or the self-setup and really solid peel coming from your on her Chronos Cupid. He's an Ami. He's just on a lower rung than they are. Unlike Sobek, who is probably the second best, uncontested best god in the game, potentially on par with your Cabrakan. But that character is too much. Giving Sobek an execute ended up being much crazier than I originally anticipated, because his tank pressure, his killing the enemy tank pressure, is just off the charts with his +1s. Having that bleed on his 3, and it is able to transfer from minions to gods instead of just the other way around, is ridiculous. Like, he gets pressure just by existing and staring at you. He doesn't even have to actually pluck, right? He just has to stare at you and be like, I could pluck you. He's just so obnoxiously tanky and survivable. And with Thebes Pridwin being meta, he dips down in the waters, gets 20% extra pots, pops a massive Pridwin shield. Like, it is just so impossibly difficult to deal with a Sobek. He's got positive matchups pretty much all around against all classes. Kind of the only guy who can deal with him decently is probably like Aries and maybe even Ymir. You got some characters that have good play into him, like On Her with the pillar, as we were talking about earlier, but as far as the tank v tank matchups, can be very difficult to go against the Sobek. And even as a carry, like, you want to get beads for the Sobek pluck, but you also want to get Aegis for the Sobek ult. And it's very difficult to choose the right stuff against him. And it's very, very hard to play into it. Just a lot of damage, has the executability, and all the CC in the world. Just perfect. Perfect character. Soul. I think Soul is one of the better burst mages. Probably a similar strength to a Neith, maybe just above because of her safety. And God, I'm moving Baron down. I can't look at that anymore. Soul is probably one of the best burst mages. And very safe. We figured out the other day that her 3 actually... So her 3 deals damage with Aspect on. You want to play Soul with Aspect on. Typically. You can play her Aspect off and go auto attack, but I think Aspect Soul is more consistent as a burst mage. And we figured out yesterday that every, like, portion of her 3, every time it ticks, she, like, makes a new portion of her disapparate. And so, like, if she, like, curls up and, like, spins around during her disapparate, and you stand on that when it explodes, you actually can take, like, multiple instances of damage from different parts of the trail. Because the trail explodes and she explodes, right? But the trail has, like, you know, like, maybe, like, 6 or 7, like, etchings that it makes. And you can stack them on top of each other. And so I actually, like, got surprise Pikachu-faced the other day because I was Mordred dashing on her. And I stepped on her trail when she was about to pop, and she'd been, like, running in circles. And I got hit by, like, 4 or 5 instances of damage. I was like, what the heck was that? So... very, very hard to chase a Soul and kill her consistently without her, like, popping you in the mouth on the way out. And she just got a lot of burst and gets more intelligence than all the other mages because of her Soul passive with Aspect. She becomes quite dangerous quite quickly. That Polynomicon, Deso, Divine combo. Get a Rod, get a Shard, get a Totem, something like that. Soul Gem. Some kind of combination like that. Just makes her very, very dangerous to play into. Just so hard to chase her out too, because she just returns so much while you're doing it. Oh yeah, that's all. Now Susano. Susano is a B tier character. That's better than Pele, I think. Maybe just under. Maybe just over. The adjustments they made to Susano passive actually have made him, like, significantly better in Joust than he was. Significantly better, in fact, but he's still a little not amazing, you know. Doesn't really kill the tanks very well. as is the problem with many of the lower tier assassins. But he can apply slows, strength debuffs, and increase damage enemy takes by 10% based on what level of your passive you can get on them. So he has potential in terms of, you know, I pick him for fun, but he actually ends up being kind of good type of thing. But it would still just be a for fun pick, I would imagine. He just doesn't match the resistibility of the better in role characters like Fenrir and Hun Batz. They just have more control over their escapability and their impact in a fight. They're just more mobile. Even the Nemesis survives longer than him. Provides more consistent poke. In a similar vein, Thanatos. Thanatos will be going in the B tier. I kind of did Aladdin dirty. He could probably go up. Aladdin can be the top of B. He's more playable than these guys. Thanatos will go under Pele. He's just, you know, can't really stack his aspect in Joust. He would be good if you could stack his aspect in Joust. Like, if you could just screw off into the jungle and farm in Joust, like, Thanatos could actually be very good. As an execute, you know, he's got the tools. He gets a lot of HP from that aspect. But it's just he doesn't have the time to scale, really, that he needs. And the ability to scale. He's going to be a little lower on the rung, on the ladder. How is Afro OP? Because she abuses her OP plus one, Zushila. She just makes somebody not die. I could move Afro top A. We could see that. More likely, we're going to need to make another tier. That's what I'm edging towards. How do I even do that? If I click add all, does that work? Nope, that's not how that worked, guys. Add all does not do that. Get him out of here. Get him out. Get him out. What's this? I'm just messing with this. Oh, there. Add category above. F. We're not gonna call it F. Is this an S plus or an SS, guys? No, let's do an S plus. All right. Well, we'll make a new category. How about that? I'm gonna rearrange this a little bit. So this is gonna be like your must pick, must ban category. And then just under it is going to be like your top of the line picks that are just better than the others. F for pre-OB of enemies. We'll populate this with a few of these guys. I think a good number of these guys can move up. Actually, I think it might just be these. I really do think Mordred is on par, if not better than Achilles. He actually is. I'm not kidding. He just is. He just is. Oh my god, it's so tricky. I want to make that jump, but I just can't in good faith do it. I can't. I really can't. All right, we did it. We made the new category. We changed the color to something cool. I don't even know what we're going to do next. Ooh, it's purple. Look at that, guys. So must pick, must ban. S plus. Strongest. After picks and bans. Here. I'm tempted to move up the triple ADCs here and the Chaac, but I'll let him chill for now. The Morgan. The Morgan is evil, man. The Morgan is, I feel like the Morgan and Afro are similar, but Morgan is just slightly weaker than her. Because Afro ult is just a little bit too ridiculous, but Mori ult is very similarly ridiculous. Yeah, we'll leave these guys together. It's mainly the skill cap that limits the Mori, and it's very draft-oriented whether this god is good or not. But with Aspect, Mori she's just a little bit too much. She can teleport halfway across the map. With that thing, she fires it off, and then for the next 5 seconds, she can choose whether or not she wants to teleport, and you can't really interrupt her unless you stun, silence, or knock her up. You can't be crippled out of the teleport. So, yeah, pretty crazy, that god. And then she can turn into anyone, right? She's good clear. can be a second Hun Batz, can be a second Chaac, can be a second Odin, can be a second Sobek, can be a second Bari, and she inherits their relic. Not as ridiculous as before when she could just grab the combat blink, but still very, very, very devastating character when played properly with the right stuff. Morgan is just a very solid support character right now. You can play her as a mage, but she finds her bread as a support. Loki right where he belongs. Exactly. Zeusy. Big Zeusy is going to slide right into the A category here, guys. Alongside his brethren. I think he's similar strength to Zeus or to Poseidon. You can go auto attack Zeus. Or you can go full mage Zeus. Either one is good. I think they're actually pretty similar strength. He's lower than these other ADCs because these other ADCs are harder to dive than he is. He returns a lot of damage regardless, right? Even though he doesn't have that kind of self-peel, but it's just easier to kill him. So, being easier to kill is a big no-no for me. But he does so much damage that he does earn his spot here. Ymir. Ymir. I think Ymir is an S tier character. Some may disagree, but I think he is. Proper Ymir gameplay, just sectioning off the fight with the wall is just so good. And when you're facilitating your backliner, which higher tier, we haven't seen that much. Ymir is an ideal pick to facilitate a backliner. Does well into the Aries too. Into the Achilles, into the Cabrakan. Has a relatively even matchup into Sobek. Walls off Bari. Like, Ymir is just very, very powerful if you can utilize his kit properly. And just can make things a lot easier offensively and defensively. Yep. The only annoyance is when they go for him. So you have to know your power spikes and know when you can and can't be positioned aggressively or when you need to be more defensive, right? Lower aspect has been hit hard, still good. We're going to put him alongside Fenrir, just under probably. Yep, with aspect. So we're looking here. Very effective character with that assassin build we've been going. The Pendulum Blade, the Shield Splitter, the Pridwin, which he'll still be able to use next patch. Just makes him really strong. But he still runs into that Thor thing where he's only useful for, X period of time when his abilities come up. Similar to like a Fenrir. So, not higher than that. Yemoja is a solid tank. I'm going to put her at A somewhere. I think she's along the same line as Bacchus, Serb. Or with Serb. Or just under, actually. Her ult is very disruptive, very powerful. In a team fight, using her ones correctly is really nice. She can't be as much of a just like stand in front and dive you presence because that's just not her style. She's more of a ranged support, right? So you got to be a little careful with picking those types of characters because you do need meat shields. You need the meat shields. Unless you're exclusively going for that range-based game. Having those meat shields that just dive and don't think twice is just so necessary in Joust. And so Yemoja doesn't really fill that role. You're going to need to do something alongside that to make her feel better. Which is why I think like Serb, Bacchus, Aries, Ymir are going to be doing a little bit more than her, Cabrakan, Sobek. Because they can just get up in your face and really mess you up more consistently than she can. Ullr. Ullr is B. Ullr can be here. Takes too long to get online. It's the only character that actually has to buy Transcendence, and it's not a recommendation, it's a necessity. So, yeah, it just takes him too long. It doesn't kill tanks very well, needs too many items, takes him too long. Vulcan, he's going to go in the A tier here. Alongside these guys. I'm going to say he's around Poseidon Zeus level. A lot of pressure from this guy. Hard to kill, especially when he goes Jade Scepter, which most Vulcans will do. As, they don't want you to be on him like that. But no CC immunity and limited mobility does make him a little tougher to pull off, especially if they have the proper dive. Like, an Achilles might be something you can live as a Vulcan, but a Mordred, an Odin, Ymir walling you off, the Chaac covering the entire map as he attacks you with his abilities. Like, you got a bouncy Hun Batz that can dodge half your stuff as he kills you. Can get very difficult to play Vulcan very fast. So that's why, just in general, these guys, these mages are going to be on the lower end of the spectrum here. And with that, I think we have a pretty solid list, guys. Yep. What do you guys think? Do we need to make any adjustments? You got any comments, questions, concerns? How are we feeling here? I'm thinking this is pretty good. S plus is your top pick, top ban. S is like, you know, after bans. These guys might get banned, but a good majority of them are probably not going to. So these are likely where you're picking from next. And then A tier is, you know, solid picks that you're probably going for next. And then B and C are probably, you're not dipping there. But in case you're wondering who's weak, like that's where you look. But as far as competitive play is concerned, if I'm picking characters, I'm probably going A or above. The other guys or whatever. Loki D tier. Ah, yes. Ushla, you make Sobek look balanced sometimes. What does he mean by that? Yeah, this is the finished list, guys. You guys got nothing to say? That's what we got? Are we good? I'm feeling really good about this list. The only question marks I'm having are maybe we need to pull like this guy. I think they're okay. I'm thinking about like maybe pulling some of the bottom selections here down to top of B, but I think we're good. So, yeah, it definitely seems like there are more stronger characters than weaker characters. We don't have that, you know, beautiful bell curve like we did last time, but yeah, I just feel like so many of these characters are very nice and playable, and that's cool. That's very cool. But there are some very, very strong guys as well. But yep, that's been the OB7 Joust tier list. It should be much the same after OB8 drops. Items are getting adjusted, and there are a couple of new items being added, actually. But I don't believe they will affect the god selections too much. We'll 100% see if they do, and if they do, we'll have to adjust the tier list accordingly, and you might see an OB8 tier list update. But as of now, this is the official Joust tier list from me, Mr. Cosmos. This is how I believe the meta shakes out when you've got, like, the best players playing the best stuff, forming the best team comps possible. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see ya in the next one.